Now, non-point source pollution is caused by a couple things. We're going to really focus on parking lots. So parking lots are an example of an impervious surface. Impervious means things cannot get through it. So water that's on top of the parking lot cannot go under the parking lot to the ground. But that naturally is what it was. It used to be just grass at one point. Parking lots, tops of buildings, sidewalks, really everything that humans have built is considered an impervious surface. Now the downside to impervious surface is twofold. One, it causes flooding. All of that water originally, once it rained, would have gone into the ground. Plants would have soaked it up, roots would have soaked it up, the soil would have soaked it up, but we don't have that anymore. Now the water is just sitting on that surface. And if you have a very bad flood, looking particularly at hurricanes and huge storms, you're getting feet of water. Well, that water could have gone into the ground, but we've covered the ground. Another thing that happens is because you have so much water, and we have a really great funneling system. We've got a pipe that leads to a pipe that leads to a pipe that leads to a river. Well, that's a whole bunch of water going to that river at once, much faster than it used to be, much faster than if everything was covered in grass. So this causes high water flow in various rivers. What that causes, in turn, is erosion. So if we look at this river, there's a whole bunch of erosion happening. And remember, we want to prevent erosion, not only for the habitat, but even for humans. If you have some sort of structure here, you could cause the collapse of that structure. This graph is showing time and stream flow. So how fast is the stream going? In green is if there's grass everywhere. And you see the stream gets higher during a rain event. That should make sense, but not too high. But if everything is paved, you have a very, very fast stream flow and a very, very short period of time, which is resulting in a lot of erosion and ecosystem damage. Another problem with all of our impervious surface is it's warm. The road is warmer than the air. The buildings is warmer than the air. Everything, for the most part, is warmer than the air. So when that rain falls and it hits that pavement, that water is going to warm up. And then that water goes into a pipe, that goes into a pipe, that goes into a pipe, that goes into a river. And that warm water hits the river. Depending on what type of river that is, it might not matter. Or it could. If this is a river that's typically cold, there will be species in there that are tolerant of the cold. You hit them with warm water suddenly, you could actually cause them to go into shock. And depending on how big of a temperature change, you can actually cause them to die. So really not great for our ecosystems. But again, it's no one's particular fault. We all contributed to the building of buildings and parking lots. So it's just something to be aware of. The other problem with all this impervious surface, so it causes temperature problems, which isn't that great. It causes flooding, not great either, but it also causes runoff. Anything that is on that impervious surface gets gathered in that rain, and it goes through a pipe, through another pipe, through another pipe to the river. So if you have all that oil in the parking lot, that all gets gathered by the water. If you have plastic, if you have a McDonald's cup, all of that gets gathered in the water, and it runs off with the water. So again, as I mentioned, plastics and chemicals. Now what I want you to do, I want you to pause this video and watch this video. Pause this video and watch this other video. This video actually shows some really awesome technology coming out that are making parking lots out of pervious surface, out of a surface that actually does drain, so that we can alleviate a lot of these problems. So pause this video, take a look at this, and then come back here after you've reviewed it and answer the weekly guide questions. We've talked about plastic pollution a little bit before when we're talking about resources. A lot of that plastic we talked about, especially the one that got onto Midway Island where all those birds were, most of that is from non-point source pollution. These are people throwing it in parking lots or in yards, or maybe a trash can is overflowing. We find this plastic on Midway Island. We have no idea who did it. We don't have anyone to blame. We don't have anyone to regulate, except all of us. An example of some plastic pollution are plastic bottles. It's actually insane. Like, I remember when plastic water bottles came out. This has not been a thing. Your tap water is just fine. However, I digress. There are 67 million plastic bottles discarded in a day, worldwide. Only 67 million. And we only recycle about 30% of those. So the other 70% are either in a landfill where they're not going to break down, or they are in the environment somewhere. They're on Midway Island. They're in the middle of the ocean. They are somewhere else. So whether it's plastic or really any waste, throw it away, please. Again, if you leave something in a parking lot, we do not filter parking lots. We don't filter the groundwater at all. If it's water running off of the ground, it's going to go into a pipe that will go into a river. We do not clean that water. So any trash you see, even if it's not your trash, please, please, please pick it up. You don't want to be contributing to the animals that you see in this picture. One more plastic note. We actually have so many plastics in the Pacific. We talked about Midway Island has huge plastics, but we actually have a plastic center. It's called the Pacific Garbage Patch. It is about the size of Texas, and it has a huge concentration of plastics. Now, this isn't like plastic water bottles. It may have been at one point, but with the currents, with the sun, it broke down the plastic, but plastics don't break down all the way. It's now in really, really, really small segments in the water. But they're so high, again, across about the size of Texas. These kind of plastics also include microbeads. So if you've ever used face wash that have those nice little beads in it, those are actually really bad. Don't use those. They're banned in the United States now anyway. But these plastics are there. So fish are swimming through it. Animals are eating it. Even though they're small plastics, they do accumulate over time. So as a summary, there are different types of pollution. It's not just chemicals or trash, but things like temperature, things like sediment, so dirt, can all be types of pollution in an ecosystem. That pollution can come from either a point source, I know specifically who is wasting that, or from a non-point source. I don't know who, it was a parking lot, and that parking lot had runoff. Pervious and impervious surfaces will make a big difference in our types of pollution.